Welcome to the MessyMen Podcast, a podcast where two men, John and Kevin, talk about and share their stories about being men, husbands, fathers, and friends, while striving, and I emphasize striving, to be the men God has called them to be. A show where John and Kevin have real, transparent conversations about the importance of being men in community. When burdens are shared, iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens the other, all while encouraging and building up one another. Wait, this sounds heavy. Not like the kind of real man talk I'm used to, like sports, grilling meat, and sports. Will they talk about sports on the show? Can't they sharpen knives or swords? Maybe an axe instead of, like, one another? No? Well, okay, what do I care? They promised to pay me well for this. Very manly announcement, if I don't say so myself. So, here to share their burdens unashamedly and sometimes awkwardly are the messy men themselves, John and Kevin.
Shorter one as like the lead in to each podcast. Excellent. You can chop it up and edit it. You can chop it up and edit it and make him say things he didn't. Like,
I totally can.
Yeah, I know.
I totally can.
It'd be fun.
Yeah. Have you seen those deep fakes?
Oh, those are amazing.
Isn't that kind of scary?
No, it's absolutely terrifying. I mean, like
the George Lucas and the Harrison Ford one. Have you seen that one? Where the George Lucas and Harrison Ford are talking about? Oh my gosh, it's funny.
It is terrifying. I mean, it truly is terrifying because that's going to be a thing,
and
right?
Yeah,
like politically and
if someone could
on the news,
and we're so naive in this country, people see that and believe it. And
well, the other thing. So I was listening to this NPR broadcast about that, and in addition to that, Adobe has software, and it's about a year old now, so it's been out for a bit, that can edit sound. And with enough input, with enough information, it can not only edit sound, like I was talking about cutting up chip stuff, you can write all new script. And it learns the person's voices and inflection.
Duplicate.
And you can't tell. I'll send you a link to the NPR episode, because, I mean, it truly is terrifying.
It is.
You will be able to make any face say anything with the right voice.
Yeah.
I love, have you seen the deep fake one it was one of the early ones they did where they put Jim Carrey's face on Jack Nicholson in The Shining? It's phenomenal. When I first saw it, this was the first time
I just saw that in my feed on YouTube, and I didn't watch it yet. I didn't know. I thought that was Jim Carrey.
The first time I learned about deepfake was through that video, and I saw that video not knowing what deepfake was. I'm like, this is brilliant, because if they remake The Shining and did it with him, with Carrey, I think he would knock it out of the park. He's got the facial range that Nicholson had and used in that movie. I think Jim Carrey could do an amazing thing with that role if you're going to do a remake.
Yeah. So
I saw that and I'm like, oh crap, they're going to do this. This is amazing. And I realized what the deep fake was, but it's frightening.
It is frightening. It is frightening. And I've heard some debates on this, that, could somebody use that to blackmail somebody, that kind of thing. Certainly you would think it could, but there was somebody suggesting that the technology is there to determine if it's faked. Like, could it get so good that no machine or no system would be able to tell it was fake? I gotta believe
probably
it. Like they
yes.
would, yeah, and that's what's frightening.
Right.
And so it's like, why are we doing this?
Right. And the technology exists, but
right,
looking at us as lazy people and looking at our news cycle as generally lazy news.
Right.
I don't know how many people are going to check.
Some evil people could really do some serious damage.
Oh yeah,
with that technology. We didn't pray.
No.
You want to pray?
Yeah.
You want me to pray? Okay.
Hey God, thanks for bringing John and I together today. Thank you for the beautiful day outside, the freshly fallen snow and the sun really is nice. It's a little chilly, but it's nice. Lord, I ask you to bless John and I in what we're doing here today and in what we're doing outside of this. I ask you to bless our families and keep them safe and keep them healthy and continue their growth. And God, I just ask that you, as always, you lead John and I in our discussion in a way that we hear each other, we communicate well, and most importantly, we're following your path to the best of our ability. And God, just give us a great rest of the day. And all Jesus' people said,
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
So, Darren, what was I talking about? I was talking about it wasn't getting employment. It was with respect to...
It was something new. Did I tell you about, or I got to tell you about...
Did it have anything to do with CBRT?
I don't know. Start talking about that. The CBRT that you went to today?
The audience can't see this, but this was a carryover from the last meeting, and this is what we talked about, is where identity is. And in one of the participants had shared this with us, that, it starts with God, but what many people do, and what we need to focus ourselves on, is looking that our identity first comes from God, and then that gives us the power, or that guides our activity. What many do, or what some of us sometimes fall and do, and I know I do this, is I go right to the activity first, and then I determine my activity is what determines my identity, not God first. Does that make sense? So it's like God tells you who you are,
right?
And then from there, you act on that. Versus the other way around, I act, and then that's my identity.
So here's something fascinating about this thing that just popped in my head, because I just had this conversation last night with my bride, that activity identifies the identity. In her team at work just did Strength Finder.
Yeah,
everyone's familiar with Strength Finder.
Yeah. I bought that for my wife for Christmas,
and it's I've taken it multiple times.
Yeah.
My wife has taken it multiple times, and she was commenting that 4 of her 5 strengths, the top ones, the top 5, 4 of the 5 were new.
Really?
Now, it's been probably, she thought, 7 years or so since she last took it.
Okay.
But it's interesting because, and her role now at work is much different, so it makes sense. It follows that because of what she's doing, that colors her strengths.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've always thought Strength Finder is a fascinating thing, and it's fascinating because it does a great job of taking a snapshot in time of how you are and how you're set up. I think unfortunately, a lot of people, or some people, misuse it and see that as, your strengths are hardwired into you and they're not going to change. And I think that's really short-sighted. In fact, when we were talking last night,
that's been suggested to me.
When we were talking about it last night, I said, actually, the people who use this, HR departments and companies, should actually look at doing it, with some regular intervals, and look at people who maybe their roles have changed since the last time they've taken it, and if their strengths haven't changed, that would be a point of training or teachable moment. And she brought up an example of a guy who had been in a new role for the last 3 years, in a role that had much more responsibility as far as people reporting to him. Mm-hmm. And his strengths hadn't changed really since the last time. And one of his strengths was, and I don't remember the exact one, but it was like the doer, or the person who executes. Mm-hmm. And in his new role, that shouldn't be a strength anymore, because he's a higher up manager now that has more people reporting to him.
Right.
He's not, just by that snapshot, he needs to focus more on pushing down to his people and making sure that they're equipped to do the stuff. He shouldn't be an executor anymore.
But isn't there, taking strength finders out of the picture, isn't there still a foundation of talents and gifts, well, let's call it gifts that we've been given by God that are still foundational, are still there, that like Lindsay, can I say her name?
Yeah, sure.
I'll bleep it out we want to protect our families because the death threats we're going to get after this goes on.
Your husbands are so boring. I want to kill you. And them.
It's terrible. No, but did she find that there are things that she's like, I get that this strength identifies with something that's in? Are there tests that show what's in your DNA? But then certain things will, I don't want to say evolve, but you have to adapt your talents to a certain role that you were in.
Yes,
like Lindsay.
Yes and no. So a test like Strength Finders is only a snapshot in time. So it doesn't speak to the overall how you're wired. I mean, the strengths of that are true to your core being of like who you are and how you were designed, those will still show up. They may not, because of what you're doing at that point in your life, in your role at work or whatever, they may not bubble to the top 5.
Yeah.
But they'll still be in the top level. They won't be, down in the basement. So there are other tests.
I was going to ask you that. With
more along the psychological
and
tests that do a better job of still having a snapshot, but maybe the snapshot is more applicable to you as a whole, is you as a being, as those hardwired inherent traits.
Right.
So there are other tests like that that do a better job of, but really, I mean, all tests to some extent will just be a snapshot of how you are right now. I mean, even like real in-depth psychological tests, there's always some level of swing to them. There's always some level of variance, even, depending on the day of the week, how much you slept and how good you ate, kind of stuff, right?
Sure. It makes sense.
The tests that are used, like in my field, in mental health, have been shown to do a much better job of defining what those traits are, or maybe what the, if there's depression or anxiety, things like that. But still, you would expect those to change. As a person gets better or gets worse, you can see a change. And they've done enough studies on those tests over time and comparing them with other people taking the tests and other tests that are similar, that they've been able to determine some have some real good efficacy for. You can trust the score you're getting, and you can trust when you see a certain change in that score.
Got it. One thing that I've held on to with the strengths that Strength Finder found with me, and when did we take that test? It was a company that I worked for, so it was probably in 2010 or 11. So it's been a while. But 2 of the top strengths that popped up was woo, which is your attract other people and that sort of thing, and connectedness. You like to be a connector. And I have found that, throughout my life, I've always been very extroverted. I love to be social. So those all made sense to me because I feel like that is hardwired in me. Yep. And the biggest testament to that has been over the recent years in my industry, or the industry I've been in, as it became more and more transactional and less human connection. I became depressed.
Right.
Because I wasn't getting out.
You weren't doing your woo, right?
I wasn't doing my woo or my connectedness as much. Now, I could do connectedness within an office space.
Sure.
But I was working, last 3 years, I've been working from home on my own.
Yeah.
It's not me. I'm not wired. I'm wired to be around other people.
Right.
So those 2, I feel, are very wired in me.
Oh, yeah.
So, the other thing is like there's a ranger and restorative and context. Context, context, I am very much, I want to understand, like, how did we get here? What happened? Like, what happened in the past?
Sure.
I've come across some leadership that they don't want to talk about it. Like just move forward and move on. Like, well, no, I need to understand the past to know.
Yeah.
How do we?
Well, understanding the past.
Course correct.
Yeah. How did you make decisions in the past that got you here?
Right.
And are those decisions still valid? Mm-hmm. So they were valid based on the past, but now let's reevaluate and look at where we are right now. And is that still the correct decision?
Right.
That goes back to, and I know you and I have talked about it personally, and it'll come up, I'm sure, many times during this podcast. But one of the worst things in the world you can say to me is, Kevin, that talking about a decision where we're going to do this way because this is the way we've always done it. If you tell me that, no matter how valid that, we're going to stop at the red light because this is the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
I instantly want to rebel against it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense to me.
No.
Knowing that, man, things change, and while that may have been the correct decision in the past, and you can explain it to me, and I can totally get on board, that shouldn't always color the reason you make that decision now. Mm-hmm. And if you're not, then you're not changing, and you're not growing, and you're not evolving. Yeah. You're just stuck. Yeah. You're stagnant. And I hate stagnation.
Yeah. I agree. And
hate's a strong word. I really dislike it. It goes against, it just goes against, some kind of, and I don't know what strength it would fall under or what it would fall under the Myers-Briggs personality test or anything like that. But, that idea of stagnation, that idea of no growth just goes against like every fiber of my being.
See, this is interesting because I'm thinking about this now. One of the things I've beaten myself up on, is thinking, am I a quitter? Do I quit too easily when things aren't? It's not that they're not going my way, but when I see they're really broken and messed up, and I've tried everything I can to fix it, and or the environment I'm in, whether it's, so let's say it is the workplace, and if I don't see them evolving and or changing and adapting to change, then my attitude is get out of there. And
well, certainly, I mean, if you're in a place where you're not given the power to it, to make change,
right?
But yeah, please go on, but that stuck out to me.
But then I've thought before, is that a fault in me that maybe I need to stick it out longer? My entire life, I've been very resilient to change. I think back when I was a kid, my parents, as my dad grew his business, and we started out living in an apartment, and then I watched my parents as my dad got more successful in his business. We moved around a lot in the Detroit area.
Yeah.
So I was never kind of in the same school for a very period of time, and and then we'd move to a different area, and then junior high, after my junior year of high school, my parents decided, and we decided as a family, we're going to move to Arizona. Mm-hmm. That was easy for me. A lot of people go, oh, you didn't get to finish. And I'm like, no, I didn't finish. And you know what? I was perfectly okay with that.
Right.
I wasn't tied to it. I was okay. I was excited by the change. Mm-hmm. Change is always kind of like, ooh, it's something fresh and something new.
Right. Right.
But my concern is, in my 25 years of my career, I worked at Time Inc. for 7 years. That was the longest I've had at one company.
Right.
Every other company has been, 2 to 3 year stints. The most recent, only 1 year stints.
Right.
Now, there were things I had no control over, and
sure.
Either it wasn't my decision, but I have thought, should I have stuck things out a little longer? Where I felt like, I can't impact anything anymore here, or I'm not happy here. Or so did I leave for the wrong reasons? So where I'm going is that an okay thing? Because you sound like you're somebody who's like, what? Change is okay, but when is change not okay?
Well, I think it's, the easy answer is it's situational, right? But
right.
I think the more in-depth answer is that you have to evaluate any given situation from the standpoint of things aren't good we'll stick with the company example.
Excuse me.
bless you. Things aren't good where I'm at. The culture's wrong. The leadership is wrong. It's going in a wrong direction. Can I change this? Mm-hmm. And even if maybe the first gut reaction is you can't change it, I think, you stick it out and you try to change. You don't jump ship instantly. But at some point, there's going to be some clear evidence that, this isn't going to change here.
Right.
There's nothing I can do. I've made the world around me, my small department or group of people, I've made it as good as I can with the power that I have.
Yeah.
But that only goes so far. And if the cancer is throughout the rest of the company or at the leadership level, at the executive level, and it's not going to change, and you don't feel that you have any say and any power to change that, then get out of Dodge, man.
And especially when they're in another state and you're working from home, there's very little you can impact.
Right.
And basically, it's you are just a performance mechanism for them, and you don't really have a way to impact because you're not around them on a daily basis and face to face. We had this conversation today, actually. One of the gentlemen was asking this question in this group discussion this morning was, what are the questions you ask to determine whether to do business with a client or, or even if you're going to look for a new job with an employer. And shoot, where was I going to go with this? I totally forgot my thought.
Gentleman he was talking about, what are the questions you ask if you're going to take on a new client? What qualities do they have? What is, what is the essence of what they're doing? And is this someone that I want to
do
have
business with
as a client of mine? Because in a lot of ways, we're defined by the people that we work with, right?
So one of the participants brought up a really good point. He said, how do you interview your potential clients? Is it mostly on the phone or is it in person? Mm-hmm. He said it's usually on the phone. He said I would always try, if you can, to do it in person and have that human connection. And because I agree with that too. It's hard. It's hard to do business on a phone when you can't see someone's facial expressions and or kind of read them and read each other, right?
Oh, yeah.
And understand where they're coming from because I think you can miss a lot. And to understand, is this right? Is this going to be a fit? So that's why it's, again, human connection is so important.
Yeah, welcome to my world, brother.
Yeah,
there's a growing business model for counseling that is telecounseling. Yeah. Telecounseling by phone. There's people who will do it, a video conference, things like that, which is kind of cool.
Sure.
Use of technology, but for me, just the way I am as a counselor, it doesn't work. Now, have I counseled people on the phone? Yes, certainly. But they were existing clients that I had met with multiple times, that I had a relationship with, that I knew that, hey, you're going to be out of town, you need to talk. I can set aside time for you. We can have a session on the phone, no problem. But as far as starting out the gate like that, there are absolutely people that can do it, that are skilled at it. I'm not one of those people because, like you just mentioned, I have to be. I feel the need to be face to face. I got to be able to see you, watch you, be present in front of you for not only to get a good read on you, but for you to get a good read on me.
Yeah.
I mean, as a counselor, it's a two-way relationship. It's not just me figuring, what's going on in John's head, but I've got to have you be comfortable with me in a way that you can communicate freely and openly and honestly for us to work through whatever the issue is that you're working on.
Right.
And that's a two-way street. So I totally agree with face-to-face stuff.
Yeah.
And I would think, it's absolutely applicable to a business setting to have some FaceTime with clients, right?
Yeah. And then that's, again, that's the industry again is becoming more and more transactional, and more short-term thinking and all of that. And I'll tell you, there is a real I've had several conversations, with the other project that I'm working on, 5 to 10 in the D, and I'm inspired by it and I'm hopeful by it. And some of the people I brought up before that I follow, like Simon Sinek and that sort of thing on LinkedIn, there is a hunger and an appetite for good leadership. That is, I would say that that industry is progressively getting worse when it comes to leadership and upper management, driving towards, money first and people last. So what's the effect and cause of that? The cause is there's an appetite and a hunger out there for people looking for good leadership and bringing back humanity to business. Right. And I see that. I don't want to but I see that as hopeful, and there's an opportunity there. Mm-hmm. And just like what we're doing here, the importance of mentorship, and which is a human connection that men need to have. Mm-hmm. I want to do that as the next walk. I'm going to talk about the importance of mentorship, and mentoring men, and men and women even. I mean, women should have mentors and mentoring each other, and the importance of having that connection with each other.
My wife talks about it all the time at work, and she works at a place that does a pretty good job of being, cognizant of that having good mentorship programs, both. You being mentored and you mentoring others, that constant process is bringing people up. But no, in her career, it's certainly been a struggle as a woman that it didn't exist for a lot of people. Certainly not a lot of women in the business place. And part of that was, I honestly, if I'm guessing it, it's only just guesses, but part of that is, there wasn't the importance put on it because of lots of, I'm sure, societal reasons and things like that. But it's starting to catch up, at least, thank goodness, and we're seeing it. But no, and any company, any business that doesn't have some sort of mentorship program is really doing it wrong, I think.
So, and here's what's really important, and this came up. A company can have a mission statement that says all these beautiful things that people go, that's awesome.
That's pretty, yes.
But if upper management and leadership isn't living that mission statement, that mission statement is worthless. Meaningless.
Absolutely worthless.
And that is a big problem in industry. Companies put a mission statement, you can put a lipstick on a pig, as they say. Right. But if leadership, I'm very, using leadership, I'm putting quotes around it because it's really not leadership to me. I've been at companies that, small companies that they'll invest a ton of money to have outside consultants come in and do sales training. And the owners of the company or the people at the top of the company are not in those training sessions themselves. Yeah. And they spend all this money on this person. They train them and they've got great principles and all this on how to go sell. They leave and then turn around a week later, we're right back to selling the way we were before because the upper leadership hasn't bought into that. And they're beating up on everybody again, and it's like then you're right back to having to, being coerced or to force your will, and like that kind of a thing. And so that we've had that conversation is if you're dealing with people that aren't living, doing like the mission or whatever the values that they claim they have, it's like run away.
It doesn't go anywhere.
Run away.
And all that training that people spend on. Sales training and motivational stuff or whatever, organizational stuff, man, when it's not followed up on, it's absolutely worthless. It's flushing money down the toilet.
But it's leading by example. And upper management isn't leading by that example. It doesn't matter. You can spend all this money and,
Or, I see and hear about a lot of times where, somebody in the executive team will stumble upon a new management book and be really wowed by it. Like, oh, let's do this. And everybody's got to read it, right?
Yeah.
But then you do it for 3 months and then you've forgotten it, right? Because it was the shiny new toy.
Yeah.
And now the shiny new toy is old and so, there's got to be a management book written every 3 minutes. Everyone's got a new way to do management. Everyone's got a new way to lead. a lot of them are the same ideas, just kind of repackaged and refreshed. And I bet you, man, the industry exists for that because of that shiny new toy thing. Oh, let's follow this path and let's do this for a bit and then forget about it. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, under the idea that a lot of these management books are the same ideas, just kind of refreshed and rewritten. Man, if the team, and I say the team as a whole, the company from bottom to the top, really bought into it and really were united on this direction and on this method and all these tools and techniques, and everyone lived it to the core of their being, you'd never need another management book.
Yeah.
And I bet you, and that company would go through the roof.
I think I remembered what I was going to talk about earlier, and it's still in line with what we're talking about here. And in this continued conversation of this morning, and that's going to be great. You come to the next one, and then because when you and I can almost like follow up with our podcast after the CBRT thing.
Oh yeah,
you know, like you and I go there, and then we talk about what we just talked about, and get deeper into it. But what I realized about myself is in the last several years is, and it goes to this idea of being a poser. And I saw this guy speak about this, that he wasn't living his Christian walk in his business. Right. He said, I was a poser. I was someone different at church and at home than I was at work. And so that was years ago, and he realized I had to stop doing that. I need to walk with Jesus, and Jesus is with me wherever I go, but I got to start walking the walk wherever I am.
I have to be consistent,
You have to be consistent. So we had that conversation about not being a poser, but when you're asking questions, and this is what I realized I did. I was chasing jobs based on the need for a paycheck.
Right.
Instead, so what that meant was when I would be in an interview, I was likely telling them what they wanted to hear.
Sure.
To get the job. Instead of being open and transparent about who I am, but then also asking them the right questions to find out who they are.
Well, and that would be an interesting skill you'd have as a salesperson, as someone who's kind of wired to be a salesperson, is the ability to change who you are and really kind of reflect what they want to see.
Yeah.
So your salesmanship combined with your time in theater, your acting.
Yeah.
You can instantly switch over to play that role. All right, I'll play that role of what you're telling me, what I can hear that you want in a sales guy, even though it's not me, but I'm going to play that role to get that job, to get that paycheck.
Yeah. And what I've learned, that's the wrong way to go about it. Ethically and my values, that is not the way to be. What I want to be is a trusted advisor. What I want to be is build a relationship with a customer, whoever it is, and have a long-term relationship with them and know that there's going to be ups and downs. And I don't want to sell them something that they don't need. I think we talked about this before. It's like I've never had respect for people that say, "Oh, yeah, he could sell a ice cube to a Eskimo kind of a thing,
glass of water to a drowning man."
Yeah. It's like, and I don't find that as redeeming. But one of the questions that was brought up, or just we were asking questions like, what are the right questions to ask? And I love this. It's like you're trying to determine their values, and one of the participants said, asking, try to find out what kind of family they have. What kind of family life do you have? To find out what's important to them, because if they really put their family, and that's really important, family life is important to them, that's a good checkbox. Mm-hmm. But if they ignore that and they don't want to talk about that kind of stuff, and they just want to talk about business and all that,
right?
Not that it's a kill, for the opportunity, sure, but it's a red flag.
Yeah,
it should be a red flag.
Yeah.
So I love that, and to me it was like that was kind of common sense, but I know I haven't done that in the past. Asking questions about what's your culture like, but kind of getting to know them a little more personally, mm-hmm, and find out, what it is outside. Just like, and why do you do what you do?
Yeah.
What's your why? What's your purpose? asking a very pointed question like that. Why do you do what you do?
Right.
And a lot of times that'll open up, and give you some sense of like, okay, is this the type of company, organization, or whatever it is that I want to be a part of? Does it align with my values? Is their why line up with my why?
Yep.
And for me, it's more about really being focused on people, and other people, and doing synergistic outcomes for both the customer and what we're doing, and instead of just going to get the money, any way you can. I'm not. And I like to think that I haven't been like that in the past, but I've certainly worked for organizations that have that thinking process. And what I see now in the marketplace, and what it's exciting me when I look on LinkedIn, and there's a hunger for getting humanity back into business, and not just being a cog in a wheel to drive revenue. But putting people first. And I'm seeing a hunger and appetite for that. And that excites me because I feel like that's something I can probably offer to somebody.
Yeah. Well, and if you look at, societal changes as a whole, I mean, that same theory and attitude is the same kind of theory and attitude that goes behind, there's this big buildup of the Amazons and the Walmarts of the world because they were offering basically anything you needed, you could buy there, and you could buy it cheaper than anywhere else. Well, in the last 3, 4, 5 years, we've seen a big pushback to buying local, selling local, both in products that you get, but in produce and everything. I mean, you want to buy from local farmers, you want to buy from local producers, you want to buy from the small mom and pop shops, the brick and mortar places that you can walk into that you can have a relationship with
service
people, right? And so there's been a big push to that. So that's all in the same line. What?
No, go ahead.
Oh, you just said X. You throw up your hands like you had something to say.
Well, I just so
yeah. Go ahead.
In line with this, this is what I was going to say. So I was talking about customer service, and I was talking about the MacBook
So
Pro.
what you said before wasn't going to.
Well, no, I knew it was going to get us there eventually.
We'll take that out in the edit.
No, we're going to keep it. So
MacBook Pro.
Yeah. So audience, we were recording this previously on my 2008 MacBook Pro, and old machine.
It was almost the
performed
last
like
century.
Yeah. So
we had to wind it up.
I had hoped.
We had to wait for the tubes to warm up.
It's great. What else? Keep going. I liked it. Wait for the tubes to warm up. He was running on DOS. It was
yeah, right.
Lotus Notes.
Yep.
No, but I had gone on Nextdoor, which is a great. And I just asked that Nextdoor, need to update, repair a MacBook Pro, and I love about Nextdoor because it is a community-based thing, and people giving the recommendations. And there was a company in downtown Rochester. Owner reached out to me, said, "Hey, we can take a look at it, and we can. I said the battery it was getting hot. It's having all kinds of problems. And what can we do to kind of refresh it and put a new battery in it, that kind of thing?" So anyway, right before Christmas, I reached out to the guy, said, "Yeah, just bring it in. We'll take a look at it. We do free, diagnostic on it, kind of thing." Took it in. 2 hours later, he called me up and he said, "Look, I could put a new battery in this and da-da-da." He goes, "Our recommendation is not to do anything. I would get if I were you, I'd get a new unit." He said, "The problem is Apple's not, supporting the operating system anymore."
Right.
What I appreciated about that was he could have easily said, "Oh yeah, we'll fix this, $200 or whatever, $300 and done it." And then, but they were honest and said, I wouldn't do anything with this machine. And
because of that, you're telling me this story. How many other people have you told that story to?
Well, and not only this, and I said to Chris, I said, my wife, I said, "You know what? When we have another laptop or something we need, I'm going to him
first, without even thinking about it."
Without even thinking about it.
How many other people have you told that story to?
He's playing the long-term game.
Yeah, and how many people have you told that story to?
Not
just
3
me.
or 4 now.
Well, 3 or 4 plus
now hundreds of thousands are going to hear about it.
Are tens of listeners.
No, be more optimistic.
No, but with interactions with local businesses, one of the best things that can happen is have someone say, yeah, you know what? It doesn't make sense to fix this.
Yeah.
Get a new one, throw it out, do whatever. I've got a mechanic that I take cars to that he'll say, it's not worth it to fix this with the age of the car or whatever. He's told me that in the past. He's told me, yeah, you can fix this way, but we can do this and maybe get you another year out of it if it's an older car. Man, those are the people that I tell stories about and that I send other people to.
Yeah.
I mean, a business owner that will tell me, I don't want your money, and give me all the valid reasons why they don't want my money, why it would be a waste of money for me to spend it with them.
Right.
That's awesome.
Companies, and here's the thing. I believe, and I think there's evidence that is showing us, I think Target actually did some research on this themselves, and they realized that not everyone, like shopping online is not going to destroy all brick and mortar.
Right.
Customer service matters. And where does that start? It starts by treating your employees correctly and training them to be customer service agents. But it starts at the top, how you're treated, how they're being treated. And Target realized that not everyone's buying online from people who like to come into the stores because they get good customer service. Yep. And I agree with that. And I think as companies in retail or whoever it is realize that, because I still like to kick the tires. I don't care what it is. I'm not talking about a car. I don't like to buy clothes online. Yep. And my wife is okay with that, and she'll ship them all back. But I like to go, try it on and feel it and all that. So I'm still gonna. But if I get good customer service with it, and a good price and that sort of thing, I'm gonna keep going back. And maybe retail lost a little bit of that, and everyone got excited about buying everything online. You could just do this online, but then something was missing, and it was that human connection. And it is kind of getting out of the house and like going, but you want to go somewhere where it's like, you know what, I trust these people. They're not looking just to try to push something down my throat. I do like the fact that Best Buy, I was just in there the other day, and one of the geek guys or whatever back in the Apple area, I met him in December when I was shopping around for the new Mac.
Yep.
Had a conversation with him, and then I left, and then I came back in because I needed an HDMI connector.
Yeah.
To hook this to my monitor, and he remembered me, and we had a great little conversation, and I told him what I needed, and he showed me 3 different ones, and he said, you know what, I would get the Belkin, I wouldn't get this one. Price was about the same, but it was like there was no. He wasn't trying to pressure me to buy anything.
Right.
But also he had my best interest in it. He was smart about
sharing
it. And
his
he's
experience.
A good guy. Just like we had a good conversation about some things and caught up. And I told him I ended up buying one of these. Didn't buy it from them. I bought it from Costco. He's like, great, that's a great deal. It was like, well, but I'm going to remember that guy every time.
And you mentioned Costco. Costco's one of those really big companies that's doing it right, man.
Yep.
I go, because where I live, there's 2 Costco's that are equal distance from my house. So I have never seen an unhappy employee at Costco. Never run across one. I've never run across one that's grumpy. They are all so friendly and happy to be there and so incredibly helpful. But that's because they're treated well. Costco is always, every year, one of the top places to work, especially even for entry-level stuff. They pay their employees well. They give them good health benefits, and it shows and it comes through. And that's exactly, that human connection is such a huge part, and can be lost very easily today.
So what does this teach us as men, interacting with the world and with other men and mentorship and all these things? What does this teach us about how we interact with other men and what we should be encouraging other men? You and I, Kevin, we're out in the world and we're doing this with each other, but like what we're trying to get men to understand about ourselves and leadership and mentorship and all these things and how to interact with other people and where our motivations should be. Go.
That's a great question, and one that wasn't at all scripted. So I have no idea.
Well, just everything we've been talking about, I want to bring it back to
well, no,
to who we are, messy men, and
I think that's
trying
great.
to, how we mentor other men, right?
And that's what
The
we've
community.
talked about. That should be, all of when we get together and record, it should be focused on those things. So, finding a way for men to make sure that they are constantly in connection with other human beings. Mm-hmm. And that connection has to be a real connection, not surface level, not, focused on, if we're talking about businesses, not focused on the task of the job at hand. 100%. There's got to be heart behind everything we do.
Yeah.
And there needs to be heart behind all the relationships we have, all the interactions that we have
for other people,
really on a daily basis. And, you can really look at this big picture holistically. And this isn't just, the people that you live with and your friends and your coworkers. This has to be, for it really to take hold, it's got to be across the board, right? So Joe Schmo, who works at the gas station that you see once every week when you stop and get gas,
yeah.
When you ask, say, hey, how you doing? It shouldn't be, well, I'm fine, and you? Yeah. No, seriously, how's your last week been? Did you have a good weekend? Did you and the family do something? Taking an extra 30 seconds out of your life for that interaction to not only say, how are you doing, but really listen to the answer and really, ask it in a way that doesn't just elicit, I'm fine, and you? Because we get so used to answering that way. So
we do that at church, right?
Right.
I mean, we do.
We do it everywhere. Hey, John, how's it going? Good. Kev, how are you?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's just, it becomes second nature. But really stopping for a second. Oh, really? How you doing? What's new?
And it's little cues, too. Like if I were even to say, and I know I've done this, just like, I'm all right. All right, cool. No, dig in. Yeah. Dig in. You're like, hey, what do you mean? Like, what's going on? It's like, what's going on? It's like, is there...
Well, you hear,
on your heart,
you hear people telling jokes, not jokes all the time, but relaying, when they're at a restaurant and the waiter or the waitress sets down your food and says, okay, enjoy your meal, and you automatically say, yeah, you too.
Yeah.
Well, that's because you're not listening, man. You're not listening. You're just automatically, you're like a robot. Somebody pushed the button and that's your response. Yeah, you too.
I don't know how to use the YouTube phrase.
Right. Yeah.
Brian Regan.
Yeah, exactly. So, how we interact with people, all people that we come in contact with, is important. Yeah. And that colors the way we are as human beings, right? Yeah. So if we're looking to be more connected, which we should be, because we've identified that as one of our big problems, right? In this society right now, that our lack of connectedness and interaction with other people, and real true interaction.
Sure.
So, man, we've got to do it everywhere, right? Every time we go through a drive-thru, every time we stop at a 7-Eleven, every time we, meet the pizza guy at the door, all those interactions are just as important as the interactions with our loved ones, with our family, with our friends, and with people we work with. Just and it doesn't take that much time, does it?
No. I think, unfortunately, I can't wait to, if we're around, to see all the case studies that are done, how technology has made us lazy in having those interactions, proper interactions with people, Yeah.
But bringing it back to business, it's that too. It's leadership that knows who their employees are, that knows the names of their employees' kids.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife works for a company that, it's family owned. The grandson, I think, in the lineage is now the president running it. But there are other family members who have retired that, will still hang out around the place. And not only do they ask how she's doing when they see her, they ask about me and our children by name. Yeah. They ask about her sister who used to work there, who hasn't been there for 5 years. Yeah. And they ask about her sons by name.
That's awesome.
Because they know their people, man.
That's awesome.
But it's not just as leaders, right? We need to do that at all levels. Mm-hmm. So we need to do that, in the business world, we need to do that up. We need to know those things about our bosses, our managers. We need to know those things about our coworkers, and certainly we need to know those things about the people who work for us.
Yeah.
That's what makes the difference.
Yeah.
Here's full circle for you. It's a Wonderful Life, which you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Mr. Potter asks George to, I'll pay you all this money, come work for me. He says no. But like when the bank was crashing, what was George doing? He went to the bank and he was talking to the individuals on a personal basis about their money and how he was going to do his best to make sure that they had that, right?
Right.
He knew all his
the whole town.
customers by name, knew their family, knew their kids, knew everything about them. And that's, in the end, what made the difference, right? It's how well he knew those people.
Yeah.
And man, it's so easy to get away from that because, on one hand, I say, what's an extra 30 seconds out of your day to talk to the guy at the gas station?
Right.
Well, but really, that builds up. So when we look at our fast-paced world of technology and production and now and build and sell and fast, right?
Yes.
You can have sales managers that say, you were on the phone with a client for 15 minutes. What do you need to be on the phone 15 minutes for?
Yeah.
If you can't sell in 5, what are you doing? You're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, that's where the push is coming from.
Yeah.
But
you need to be closing.
Yeah. ABCs, always be closing.
Yeah.
But that's, I think we'll find, when we look back at our history, the history of this time, I think that's what we'll find was one of our biggest mistakes, that we forgot about the humanity and forgot about the individual. So, bringing it back to men and how we interact with each other and other people, we've got to, right? We've got to take time to make those connections.
Yeah.
I don't know how else we do it.
It's things like this and talking about it and chipping away at it by having these kind of conversations with other men. And I think deep down, even if they're not admitting it, we know it. Mm-hmm. You and I are aware of it, right? There's clearly other men out there and people, men and women who are aware of it. I think the more we kind of courageously, I don't know, being courageous here, but let's give ourselves some credit, talking about this and, being kind of the, a solution to a problem that does exist and there's a demand for it and telling men, you know what, it's okay. It's okay to have some freedom because right now you're in bondage to this conventional wisdom in this world that go. And I got to succeed in what success looks like and all these things instead of like, you don't want to be, how many times have we heard that story, the nurses, talking to the guy in the deathbed and asking the regrets. And we hear it time and time again. I hear it at corporations time and time again where people give their entire lives to a company, one of these auto companies, and they're, and they don't see their families or anything, and then boom, they blow them out.
Yep.
And I gave everything on this company, and they took it all away from me. It's like,
and on their deathbed, nobody ever wishes they worked more.
I wished I had spent more time with my kids, and I didn't, the things that were important.
So we, John and Kevin, give you, the listener, permission to take more time.
Yes.
To take an extra 30 seconds out of your day for those interactions with the people that you don't even know. But that will hopefully lead into making better time for the people that you do know. And it's the simple things. It's when someone walks into your office, close the screen on your laptop.
Yeah. Yes.
Just
little right.
Put it down. That's all you got to do. Yeah. What do you need, Steve?
Yeah.
Close your laptop.
Yeah.
Man, that's huge.
Yeah.
Or put down your stupid phone
and be present.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you doing, audience? Why are you still even listening to this? Go!
Yeah. Go talk to the guy at 7-Eleven.
No, man, you nailed it. It's so true. And I can't tell you how many meetings I've been in. You walk into a
and every screen is up,
and no one's paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why am I here?
Yeah.
and it's not. And
well, it's tough. As
it's a
sales
systematic.
guy, right?
It's a systematic problem because they're so consolidated. I ran into a buddy the other day, and he works at a big company. Again, I want to protect everybody here. But he said, yeah, it's like I've been at this company for 20 years, and every year it's just more and more of the same of we need you to make more hamburgers faster with less people. Mm-hmm. Okay, we can do that, but, and it's always more and more, faster, less tools and supplies, resources to do it.
Yeah. Yep.
And, and everyone's miserable. Mm-hmm. It's toxic. It just creates this,
Well, we should do a whole episode on all the evidence and studies that have been done on productivity. Just how people can be productive during the day and for how long they can be productive, and how quickly or efficiently goes down after a certain number of hours at work. I mean, man, the studies exist, and we are in a world and a society that is just completely ignoring those studies.
Yeah.
I mean, like, here's all the evidence put on a silver platter, and yet we still insist on 9, 10, 11, 12-hour days.
Yeah.
5, 6, 7 days a week. And it's worthless. It's so unproductive. We look at this technology that we carry in our pockets that keep us in touch. Oh man, if you're working at a company that expects you to be in touch 24 hours a day, and I know this exists because I know I've talked to people who have been berated by a boss that, hey, I sent you an email last night and why didn't you answer me? Well, because you sent it at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And their bosses upset they weren't answered. Man, and I'm trying to think of, unless you're a doctor on call, or maybe you're holding one of the 2 keys that you need to launch a nuclear strike, you don't need to be available 24 hours a day, period. Yeah. Because we all know, tomorrow, if you're hit by a bus, they'll replace you in a week.
Yep.
You are not that important.
And that's usually why that boss is texting them, because they're afraid for their own job.
Yeah.
It's fear. It's all fear-based.
Yep.
And, it is.
All right, that's all I got, man.
That's all I got today, too. Audience.
Peace out.
Peace out. Love you all.